how do you differentiate between a Trinitarian and a polytheist?
The key point is Christians are monotheists because they believe in one God. Now, this view is saying there's only one God. There is one fundamental divine person, the Father. And that secures monotheism. Because if you really reflect on this and say, why are Muslims, for example, why do they believe Allah is the only being worthy of worship? If you really think about it, it's because they would say he's the uncaused one. He's the one who brings about everything. If you speak to a Jew, they'll say he's the uncaused one. Yahweh is the uncaused one. Nothing, he doesn't depend upon anything, and he brings everything into existence. So what they're assuming is to be God in that sense is because you're fundamental. You are not caused by anything, and you cause everything, and you're divine. And so Christians are saying the same thing. There's only one being, one person who is God, and that is the Father. But then where there's a distinction between where we are different from Muslims and certain Jews is because we are Trinitarians and they are Unitarians. Unitarians believe in one divine person. Trinitarians believe in three divine persons. But that's nothing to do with monotheism. Monotheism say, how many gods do you believe in? How many fundamental divine persons do you believe in? Christians say, one, the Father. John Philoponus, why he was classed as a heretic, according to the councils, was because he went around saying there were three independent divine persons. And that's what made him polytheistic. That's what made him tritheistic. The council said, no, there's only one independent divine person, the Father. That means fundamental. Fundamental and independence are synonymous terms. So what makes a polytheist is that there are three independent or four, five, multiple fundamental divine persons. That's different from Trinitarian. Trinitarians believe there is one fundamental independent divine persons, but the other two divine persons are dependent upon the Father. So that's why they're not polytheists, because they only believe in one independent divine person.
The people that believed in the Greek gods, what were they called?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can just call them, pagan worship.
Zeus was not fundamental, yet I think that they would consider him a god, right? They would consider him divine, Zeus. He was created by what, Kronos? Like Kronos was his dad?
Independence doesn't necessarily mean that you do not have a generative cause of your existence. That's part of it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. Zeus, he was the sovereign ruler of the pantheon of gods. He was brought into existence at some temporal moment by the previous being that you spoke about. But the key point is that he was independent in his will and his action. And the beings after him were independent in their will and their actions. So they were independent in that specific sense of the word. When we speak about the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, they all share the same will. They all share the same operative power. The Son and the Spirit do the will of the Father. The Son and the Spirit perform the action and the power given to them by the Father. So there is a dependence relation upon the Father for their will and for everything that they do. So that's why in the Trinity, we hold to there being one activity within the Trinity. But that stems from the Father. He is the cause who directs all things from him. But Zeus and the other pantheon of gods, they were independent in the way that they operated. They could fight and there were battles of the gods. You will not have that in the Trinity. This links well with Islam. Because if I'm correct, there's a surah where it says, if there were multiple omnipotent beings, they'll be fighting in the sky or something like that. That doesn't actually touch on the Trinity, because the Trinity, you can never have a fighting in the skies, because the Son and the Spirit, they do the will of the Father. Their will is conformed to that of the Father. And so why we don't have a polytheistic view is because there's one fundamental divine person. The Son and the Spirit, who are derivative entities, they do the will of the Father, and the Spirit does the will of the Father alone. And so they are directed by the Father in their actions. Saint Irenaeus, a very important theologian, he had this sort of analogy where he saw the Son and the Spirit were the hands of the Father. So he used that terminology. So they're the hands of the Father. That doesn't mean, and it's not saying that they weren't ontologically equal, but they are doing the will of the Father. And if you see throughout revealed history within Scripture, the Son is doing the will of the Father. He always says, I never came to do my will, but the will of the Father. And the Spirit does the will of the Father as well. So that's why it fits very well.